Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin were never equals, or anywhere near each other in terms of power, which for some people might be a little surprising to hear. But just hear me out when it comes to this. I need to establish a couple things. Firstly, it comes to the actual styles being used within the fight itself, and the second thing is the mental nerfs Anakin had. I'll just start with the actual styles themselves, since that's a little more easy to explain. Obi-Wan was using a direct counter to Anakin's style. Due to the fact that Obi-Wan was using a style that directly counters Anakin's, it was easy for him to get the upper hand in certain situations, even though Obi-Wan was getting overwhelmed a lot of the time. But here's the more interesting and second point I want to make. Anakin was nerfed. If you don't know, within Star Wars, your emotions can either greatly amp you or greatly nerf you. And there are a few good examples. One really good example was in Return of the Jedi, during the rematch between Luke and Vader, where Vader was conflicted, he was slowly turning to the light side, and because of that he was nerfed, and Luke was tapping into the dark side with a lot of rage amps, which is why Luke was able to briefly overwhelm Vader. The second example was in the comics when Vader was bleeding his first cyber crystal. He was getting visions of him defeating Sidious and him turning to the light side, befriending Obi-Wan once again, and he was just conflicted overall, which was the reason he initially got overwhelmed. But after he was resolved, he was actually able to successfully bleed his cyber crystal, turning it into the more iconic red saber we all know him for. So yes, you are able to get nerfed if you are conflicted. This is relevant because there are a lot of guidebook statements saying that, Anakin during his fight with Obi-Wan was guilty, he was conflicted, and going off of how novels describe Anakin's situation, he was even between worlds and very, very vulnerable. And there's also the fact that his arrogance was another thing that was cited for his downfall in guides. This is all just to say that Anakin was severely nerfed during his fight with Obi-Wan, and any statement that says or implies that Anakin and Obi-Wan were equals are using this heavily nerfed version of Anakin. So that's why I think Anakin and Obi-Wan's were never equals in this fight or anywhere close. It's just that Anakin was severely nerfed.